Voila. This time around I'm going to speak English, not because it's an international language, really, because it's one of the languages that I happen to speak. And I'm all for a different solution to the problem of international understanding of international communication, but that's another kettle of fish. I have a lot of experience when it comes to learning, acquiring a language, what is called teaching languages, which actually I think it's impossible. It's really not a subject matter that can be taught. You can help other people learn a language, you can put them on the right path, but really if you expect that conventional teaching, like in other subject matters, for example mathematics, biology, chemistry, that the kind of teaching works for languages, you're sorely mistaken. And I doubt that even that kind of teaching is very effective. I came to the conclusion that we teach ourselves what we learn, and even when people speak, they teach us, actually we re-elaborate things and we actually teach ourselves, absorb things. Is not somebody cannot teach languages in a way. The simple fact that we are exposed to the language, it's a way of learning the language, but you should be alert, you should be interested, you should be curious, and otherwise everything goes over your head and you don't learn anything. When it comes to languages, conscious learning doesn't work. It's a stopgap trick that can work for getting understood and using language as a tool, but actually you don't really possess the language. You just use some words, some things you learned, and consciously. The languages are something we do for the most part subconsciously, and we cannot just, it's something immediate. For example, I understand Italian, and I cannot turn off my understanding of Italian. If somebody speaks to me in Italian, however much I try not to understand, I can't help but understand. I see a lot of things on the web concerning language learning, a lot of showboating, a lot of showing off and pretending to know better than you do. One thing is that if you think of your own native language, you know how little you know the other languages you speak. In time, if you're exposed long enough to a language and you take advantage of this exposure, you can approximate what you do in your native language, but the litmus test of your knowledge is pronunciation, because pronunciation is the least thing you can do in a conscious way. The whole apparatus, I don't know how to call it, the phonetical organs, I don't know what to call them. I mean, whatever we use to speak. That means lungs, tongue, lips, jaw, nose. We don't actively use the nose, but you can make the air go more through the nose. That's why there are nasal sounds. So how can we approximate a foreign accent, or a new language accent, or the language you've been speaking? I've been speaking Greek for 36 years. I can tell, even in English, the language I'm speaking right now. Italian is, I think, is kind of perfect, but sometimes, since I speak English as well, sometimes I have a slight influence of the English language. There are no stench divisions, you know, in our mind. So most people learn a foreign language with their own accent. Really. I've been watching videos where Italians who have an American boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife, they speak like shit. Why? For a simple reason. They do not care. So the first rule is, do you really mind if you watch a recording of yourself in a foreign language and you can tell you have a thick accent? I can't believe how we humans can have such huge extremes. There are people who speak 10 languages. I don't think that they speak them perfectly, but on different degrees they, speak each one of these 10 languages better than some people speak the only language their only foreign language, and they speak it badly. For a simple reason, I think I'm getting out on a limb and saying things nobody says. People do well whatever they like. I mean, you can like something and not being very good, but if you're good at something, surely you like it. It's a condition that is necessary, not sufficient. Some people maybe are not acoustical people. They don't go for whatever is transmission of airwaves. That means sound. And for example, I seen some MasterChef shows, and I see judges. There's a judge from in America that is in Italy, that if he was to be judged by the way he speak, he would have been judged like shit. He made huge mistakes. In time, he improved his game, but at the beginning, nobody cared. Do you know why? Because this was a cuisine or cooking show. That means he was supposed to be a good cook, not a good speaker. Okay? Of this language. On the other hand, I see people who speak languages, they are big, fat. I'm kind of fat myself now. But anyway, that means they go for languages, but not for other things. Maybe they don't cook well. So we decide in our lives what we must be good at and what we don't care. Some people just don't care about having a good pronunciation. So the result is that however much we are supposed to absorb in a natural way the foreign accent, they don't. Some people are... There is a word in oh, there is a word in Italian that I don't remember in English. Where? No. Immune to foreign accent, to absorbing a foreign accent, or rebellious. I don't know. That's not the right word. Language resistant, accent resistant. Some people are just like this. How that happens really mechanically or psychologically, I don't understand. I don't know it. I'm sure now I don't really know what is due to an inability of the mind to distinguish new sounds, and what this is an inability is due to the fact that the person doesn't even care. But if you do care, if you're watching this video, I assume you somewhat you are interested in speaking a foreign language. The first thing that I'd suggest is for the first months, mainly in four languages where there is a discrepancy or hiatus or whatever difference between what is written and what is pronounced. Mainly English. How that happens? Well, obviously, at the beginning, languages and pronunciation, they go hand in hand. What happens that it's normal that pronunciation languages are not steady things, is not physical thing, but in some way it behaves like a biological entity, so we tend to change. Languages change faster than DNA, so we are still the same wherever we go. It takes thousands and thousands of years to have a physical change, even more. But languages, just in some centuries, they tend to diverge. Obviously, it depends on several factors. If there are schools, if there are new people entering this area where the language is spoken, if there is a language that is has more status, or there are several reasons why many foreign people that tend to simplify the language. Where there are many foreign people who enter an area where this language is spoken, they bring not only their own accent, their own words, but they tend to simplify grammar. That's why accent and single sounds change over time, and you should have an upgrade of the spelling, which is very difficult to do, because you learn how to spell, and the idea is that in time people don't even notice that, for example, in Italian say gnomo, and we take for granted that gn is n. Actually, gn is g and n, and why? Because at the beginning these sounds were pronounced gn, and gn in time became n. Instead of coming up with a new symbol, we used the old symbols with a new meaning, new sound. So you have two characters or whatever, and that is not very logical, and it's not very easy. That happens even for ancient Greek and modern Greek pronunciation. So forget the spelling, okay? Even in languages that are quite similar, there's not big difference, like Italian or Turkish or Spanish or Portuguese. Okay, even if there are, you have to know that in Italian CH is pronounced K and not Ch or Sh. But at the beginning, you are exposed to the sounds and the language. Oh, people tend to write, to take notes, whatever, when they learn the language. Try to go with the flow, to remember the sound. If you think of the language or absorb the language through sounds that you don't really know how to spell, you are pushed to memorize sounds and not to make them similar to your sympathy. The moment you write and you're used to reading these characters according to your language, even in your mind, a j or a n sounds j, n. Maybe in other languages sounds more j or n. Absorb the language, so you can you can have pictures, and every time you go to Google Translate or whatever you have, and you check and you listen. Google Translate, there is a spelling, and you try not giving importance to that. That's a good approach. So you don't learn the sounds. Oh, CH is key. No. First you learn how to speak, and then you learn how to read and to spell. That's the idea. I watch people reading Italian or pronouncing Italian on a website where you correct people. And you can tell immediately they're reading Italian like it's their language. So I can hear Americans say voglio andare alla stazione. I can hear Turkish people, so I'm Turkish, and I immediately tell, because Turkish people sometimes have the it's quite similar to English. English pronounce point. Italians tend to pronounce, or even Spanish, or people who don't have this sound tend to pronounce point or time instead of point time. Turkish is a little bit like this, like English, kutu, and they have different vowels. I can immediately tell I'm not able to reproduce really that sound. My accent in Turkish is it's an approximation, but very loose approximation of it. But at least I have in my mind, I know that what I read in Turkish doesn't sound Turkish at all to me. So I'm perfectly aware. Haklısınız. Türkçe zor mu? Hayır. Türkçe bana zor gelmiyor. Ayrıca ben Çince ve Japonca da biliyorum. Türkçe onlardan çok daha kolay. It sounds like Italian. Not 100%, but it doesn't sound Turkish. So I should spend more time listening to the recordings. Okay? There's other ways called shadowing, listener, what we used to call listen and repeat. Now it's called shadowing. The difference is that the shadowing is short phrases and pronounced immediately. Okay? So you still have in your mind the echo of what you've been listening to, you've been hearing. Another thing is losing your tongue through reading. That's why I sometimes spend time. Koyde. Hoş geldiniz beyefendi. Hoş bulduk muhtar. Ne var ne yok. So I read a lot of times, many times. I think that you should listen to the recordings many times, and you do some shadowing and you try to read. One thing that I suggest, if you really notice that whatever you do, you still a far cry from the real pronunciation, try listening more. And maybe you're not ready. I mean, you shouldn't try to speak only when you're perfect, so you would never start speaking. But I should, because sometimes we are scared, you know? I noticed that if you've been exposed long enough to the language, you obviously you use 1/10 of what you can understand listening and doing that thing. That's a part for the course at the beginning. It's not a big problem and time. But simple phrases, simple sentences should come to you very without thinking. You've been exposed. If you had to think about everything you say, you're not ready to speak. So maybe you're ready to say something very simple, like I want to eat, where is the station, I'm cold. Simple phrases. You start like this, like children. And really, for common people who don't have a lot of time on their hands and they're not so into language learning, I recommend just starting easy, and in time, when you make time for, at the beginning, everything you're doing is new, it's an effort. It's so when I used to start playing the trombone and trumpet, I just played 5 minutes every day. So 5 minutes, yeah, at the beginning even 5 minutes my lips were swollen, and time I can spend much more time, and I know many things. I can do a lot of things. Among them is playing Dixieland with a good accompaniment, but that's another story. Okay, I think I've been spinning a lot. Thanks for watching.